All right, this is the last video for the history of advertising, and I would say this is like my favorite one. Okay, so when I was young, I know I often just looked at big books on the history of advertising, and I looked at these really cool ads of, yesteryears, and I knew that's what I wanted to do, when I grew up. So today I want to share some of the ads that just continue to excite me and motivate me. And of course, as a student of advertising, this is something you should know. So let's go to the first ad. See. Okay. So I'm going to move myself around as I go. But you know, if you know your cars, you probably know what this brand is, right? What is this brand? It's Rolls-Royce, right? It's Rolls-Royce. The yellow one that you see there, I actually took that photo. It's a Beverly Hills, photo with I think the name of the brand that owns this, the guy who owns it, is a Bijon, and I looked it up. It costs about $412,000. Okay, this particular yellow car that you see right here. Let me see if I can point it. Yeah, this one. All right. So Rolls-Royce, right? This is, the ads for Rolls-Royce were one of the best ads, and the most popular, the most famous ones of all time. So let's get started. All right. So this is one of their ads, and let's read it. At 60 miles an hour, the loudest noise in this new Rolls-Royce comes from the electric clock. This particular ad was made by Ogilvy, and it was created, I would say, like early 1950s. That's pretty amazing because, it really kind of bumped up the sales of Rolls-Royce. Um, and that ad at 60 miles an hour, the loudest noise comes from a clock, which means it's a really silent car. It's an all-time sort of favorite headline, and most advertising folks will tell you that's a big one. That was a big one. So this is an ad. It looks like an article, but it's an ad. And you remember David Ogilvy, right? He was all about, well, the consumer is not a moron, she's your wife. She likes research. She likes information. So this particular ad has a lot of copy in it, right? There's a lot of sort of text in it. And that is very typical of a David Ogilvy ad. Okay, so they did clearly well. Their sales doubled at that time. It's kind of cool. All right. So let me show you this particular ad that you see here. Now, you probably know what this car brand is, right? Because they still have the very same look and feel. Yes, it's a VW, Volkswagen, right? Now, they had a very interesting sort of thing that they had to work with, okay? How did they become so big? They were Hitler's favorite car. So how did it come here after the fact that everyone hated, Hitler? How did VW sell Hitler's favorite car to the American people? Right? Good question. Now, who did this? Again, a name that you now know, and that is Bernbach. Okay. This is a very, very popular ad that you're seeing here. It's called Lemon. All right, Lemon. And I'm going to read that copy for you because it's hard to read, but I have it here, so I'm going to try and read it for you. Okay. So it goes right down here. This VW, right here. Okay. Pay attention. If you can see a little bit, you'd know, but this is where I am. This VW missed the boat. the chrome strip on the glove compartment is blemished. It must be replaced. Chances are you wouldn't have noticed, but Inspector Court Corona did. There are 3,389 men at our factory with only one job to do: impact VW at every stage of production, 13,000 VWs produced daily. There are more inspectors than cars. Every shock absorber is tested, and it goes on and it talks about a lot of those sort of processes that the car goes through in inspection. Okay. And then it says this preoccupation with detail means that VWs last longer and require less maintenance than other cars. It also means that a used VW depreciates less than other cars. And then here's the tagline, which is the cool one, right? It's the last line that you see right down here. We pluck the lemons, you get the plums. Okay, so what is it saying? It's saying that we go through a lot of testing, and we pull out all the cars that are not working or have even a little bit of a defect. Okay, so that's what this particular ad is saying, and it's a very, very famous ad campaign that they did, and our man Bill Bernbach is responsible for creating this amazing campaign. And if you are like, sort of visually, graphically sort of oriented, you will see what perfect balance, what perfect harmony that this ad particularly shows, right? Of image, of copy, and really like simplicity. So Detroit at this time, right? 1960s, they were producing these large cars with a lot of accessories. That's kind of what American cars are known for, right? Large cars, large accessories. Here comes VW, right? And the Beetle, right? This is the Beetle. It is so simple. It is, it strives on simplicity, right? It strives to be simple and very minimalistic in its sort of approach to the ad that you're seeing there. Somewhat feels personal as well. Okay, so that was Bernbach's quality, and this particular ad, just a decade and a half after World War II, starts to come to America and becomes a really, really popular car and continues to be popular today. Okay, so that is the lemon. I just love this ad. I mean, there's something really amazing about it. Okay, let's move on to the next one. And of course, this is a big one, right? And now Hertz, as you know, 2020 files for bankruptcy, right? Given Corona and everything. But what I'm talking about is Hertz in the 1960s, where it always was number one, right? And then Avis comes into the market. Avis, both these car companies. Number one and number two, you know who number one is, Hertz, right? Number two, Avis. Okay, so let's talk about what happened here with their advertising. I love this stuff. These guys like fighting with each other was just amazing. All right, so let's look at this particular ad. And this is their first ad campaign with 1962-66. When I say campaign, I mean like a series of ads, right? Series of ads within one larger big idea campaign, right? So all of those little ads within that campaign all talk about the same stuff, just maybe little, different characters and, kind of different thematic contexts, but really talking about the same thing. Okay, so let's look at their first ad. Okay, so Avis comes into the market and says, well, gotta do something, Hertz is number one. Well, we are nowhere near number one. We're number two. Okay, but how do we tell people to buy our product? Okay, so their campaign was themed "We Try Harder." We try harder. Okay, so let's look at this particular ad. Avis is only number two in rent-a-cars. So why go with us? Because we try harder. When you're not the best, you just have to, right? So that is how they're sort of positioning their ads. We can't afford dirty ashtrays or empty gas tanks. So we don't give you empty gas tanks. We clean our ashtrays, right? That's what they're trying to say here. Our cars are washed. We make sure that our tires are right before we give it to you, right? We have heaters in the car, but they actually work. We have defrosters in the car, but they actually work. Okay, so that's kind of what they're going with. Also subtle hint that yeah, you're paying a lot for Hertz, but are their heaters working? Do they give you clean cars, right? We try harder because we're number two. So that's really how they sort of position their campaign. So instead of kind of hiding, so to speak, that they were like a distant second, the team just turned it into like, hey, potential benefit of being number two. And that's why you should go with us, right? So I think it's a really very clever campaign that you see here. So think about it. To a conventional eye, right? Someone like you and me, if you had to create an ad like that, you would say, whoa, should we say that we're not number one? Like, should we say that we're not the best? That, I don't know, like that's the page one error. Like, we can't do that. But Bernbach said, yes, I understand that there is that apprehension. However, we're going to actually prove that we are, who we are. And we try harder is going to become a strong positioning. Okay. So they had actually done some research, and it said, they asked people, like, would you choose number one, number two? And people said, why would we choose number two, right? So all the market research was saying, do not do this. Do not go out there and say, we're number two and we're amazing. But Bernbach said, no, we got to run with it anyway. We're going to do it. It's okay. People will start to associate us as a good company, right? So this is really interesting. This sort of, yes, we're the underdog, but we'll do great. So let's just do it. So let me show you some of the ads that they've created here. Avis. So these are different ads within the same campaign, right? Avis cannot afford unwashed cars or smudge mirrors. It's basically the same sort of idea. Avis cannot afford not to be nice. Why? When you're not the biggest in rent-a-cars, you have to try harder. We do. We're only number two. Okay. Some more here. So what happened with all this campaign stuff, right? What happened was between 1963 and 66, the Avis market share went up quite a bit, right? From 29 to 36%. Meanwhile, while people were moving there, right? So the Hertz sort of market share started to fall. Okay, so it actually did happen. It was really successful between 63 and 66 to come up with something so amazing. All right, so now Hertz is saying, gosh, this is a problem, right? This is a problem. We got to do something. So they went to an ad agency and they said, well, it's time to get, down and dirty. Let's do something to fix this problem. So the ad agency says, well, you're getting your asses kicked and now it's time to kick back, right? Let's do something. Everyone loves an underdog in general. So now it's our turn to say, yeah, but we're better. So, this is hard, because it's like sort of sensitive issue, right? This is now the two competitors are, they're going to be fighting with each other. And then responding sort of directly, to a rival in the same field. Like how do we do that, right? One wrong move and, you might appear to be rude, right? You may even come across as a company that's now nervous because of the competition. Well, that's a problem. So how do we fix it? How do we fix it? So what did Carl Ally, the competition, what did they say? They said, well, we've got to be firm, but we got to be cool, right? And we have to be confident, because in the end, we're still market leaders. So let's figure out a way to make this work. So this is what Hertz came up with. And I think it's fantastic. This is what they tried. For years, Avis has been telling you Hertz is number one. Now we're going to tell you why. Okay. So I'm not hiding anything behind this thing, but because it's text that you can't really read anyway, and nor can I. What it's telling you right now is, hey, we are number one. We're number one. And here's why we're number one. Okay, so all of this little text that you see there is telling you all about what makes them number one. Here's another ad, which is very similar. And it says, Hertz has a competition who says he's only number two. Well, that's hard to argue with. So, sort of solidifying the fact that they're number one. Okay, so they have, what you see here is a bit of a breakup. This is Hertz. Hertz does all the stuff, but hey, these guys only try harder, but we already have everything. Okay. Excuse me. Number two says he tries harder than who? Right? Another similar one. Beautifully designed. Here's another one. If you were in the car rental business and you were number two and you only had half as many cars to offer and only about half as many locations at which to offer them and fewer people to handle everything, what would you be saying in your advertising? Right, your ashtrays are cleaner. Okay, beautifully done. Hertz, who's perfect. Okay, what do you think happened? Wow, something crazy happened, right? In 90 days after this campaign, DDB, the Avis campaign, abandoned the We Try Harder campaign altogether. Okay? I mean, I would say justifiably, both the campaigns really kind of, I would say, could claim success, right? In some way, they could both claim success. I mean, for 4 years, the Avis share sort of went up, and the Hertz share kind of just froze, right? Their relative position. But both these companies, both these campaigns, what did they do? They opened new ways for campaigns to advertise and compete, not just in the marketplace, but also in the media world, in the advertising world, right? So I think that was kind of really interesting to see. Okay, let's talk about a couple more before we close, and this is the story of the Hathaway shirts. Okay, now Hathaway, it was medium priced, shirts. It's a range of shirts. I mean, this company was out of Maine, and it's a clothing manufacturer, right? And they had a very small advertising budget, maybe $30,000. At that time, it's still big, but compared to some of the others, it's not so big. Okay, so they went to Ogilvy and they said, "Can you please create an ad campaign for us?" And so they were trying to figure out, well, who should the model be for this campaign? We need somebody who's like a white Russian sort of baron kind of person. And maybe he's a bit PR-ish, so he wants to showcase his work, right? Showcase his shirts. And so that's kind of what you're seeing, the man in the Hathaway shirt, right? And Ogilvy was trying to figure out, okay, who should we choose? What man, is the right person to choose? So then eventually he found someone, and then he said, he saw somebody fishing one day, and this guy was wearing a patch on his eye, and he said, well, it kind of looks cool, so why don't we just get this guy to wear a patch? And so eventually, this is what the man in the Hathaway shirt looked like: very dignified, very barren esque, but also wearing that patch. Okay. And so this is sort of the image that he went with. Now the first ads were, let's say, around the 1950s or so, and then people were kind of intrigued, like, who is this guy, right? What is the narrative that you're seeing at the back? He's with a gun here. you know he's had a store at the other ad that you see there. So never underestimate the sort of the power of that eye patch. Sometimes the smallest details can make so much difference in an ad, right? And this actually became a very, very popular campaign. So when Ogilvy came out with his first book, the folks who were selling it, they all wore eye patches. It's just kind of cool, right? How sensational this eye patch thing became. So I want to show you some of the other ads that were created. The man in the Hathaway shirt. Look at that. Ooh, he looks kind of cool with the opening a champagne bottle and scarf and everything. And and then he's, of course, at the rail track doing some works. I mean, everyone can wear this amazing shirt, right? People can sort of, I would say, relate to it, right? Here's another really cool campaign, right? So Orbax, you may have not heard of Orbax, but Orbax is this other brand. You can when you think of Marshalls and TJ Maxx, right? Orbax, I would say, was sort of the front runner. That's where it all started, right? So, by the way, they have a store right here in Los Angeles, and it still exists, but the building used to look a bit like this in the 1950s. So this is their departmental store, right? 1950s, very much like a bargain brand. You buy things slightly cheaper, and okay. So what I want to do is I want to show you one of their ads, okay? And I think it's interesting. So of course, when you're looking at this ad right now, you're thinking, "Oh my God, real condescending." Okay. We will start with the little cat ad here, and we'll move on to the liberal trade-in. Again, they're both playful, they're both condescending, but for that time, it worked. Okay, so I'm going to try and read the little thing that we see here at the bottom. And this is what it says. I found out about Joanne, okay? And this is what the text says. The way she talks, you think she's in the who's who. Well, I found out what's with her. Her husband owned a bank? Sweetie, not even a bank account. And that car? Darling, that's horsepower, not earning power. They won that in a 50-cent raffle. Can you imagine? And those clothes? Of course, she does dress divinely. A mink stole and parasuits and all those dresses on his income? Well, darling, I found out about that too. I just happened to be going her way and I saw Joanne coming out of Orbax. So this particular ad, it's kind of funny how it goes, right? So clearly the person who's talking also was going to Orbax. And she was bitching about Joan, right? Joan going into Orbax and dressing all this fancily and everything. Well, how does she do that? She does that because she shops at this store. Okay. So, of course, there's a little bit of a bitchiness to this particular ad, but what it is saying is people are all secretly going to Marshall's, right? And buying stuff from there. And I do that. I'm cheap, right? And I'm not, there's no secret there. But that's really what this particular ad is, right? So think about Marshalls in the 1950s and 60s and how that's marketed, right? Of course, you're hearing mink stole and parasuits and, things like that, which, people did do a lot of at that time. And let's look at this other ad here, and that says liberal trade-in. This is our last ad for this video. It says, liberal trade-in, bring in your wife and just a few dollars and we'll give you a new woman. Of course, super, super condescending, but silly humor here, very playful in the way it is written and how it was accepted at that time. Okay, so this is the 1960s. In terms of sensibilities, right? The theme, even though it's condescending, but it really pulls you, you know, pulls your attention. It lets you, just sort of focus on it, just because it's so playful in the way it is written. A man, as you see here, is carrying a grinning woman, right, under his arm. Feels a little bit like a cardboard cutout kind of setup there. And the heading basically says it all. Okay. The message is very loud and clear. New fashionable clothes, complete makeover for less money. All right, bargain prices. So the novelty is really in the way that it's said. I mean, of course, it's borrowed language from Elsin, right? Um, Car sales, auto sales, when you see trade in, and it's applying it to the wife, which is intriguing and entertaining while selling it at the same time. I mean, I would add the word condescending to it, but I'm just using positive terminology because that's kind of how this ad was received when it was first published. Okay, so I just wanted to share all these different cool ads with you. I think, as students of advertising, these ads, you should know. Okay, so that's that. All right, ciao.